I am telling you this with a calm voice and an open heart. Sit with me a while. Imagine the red dust settling, the evening sky turning the color of ripe papaya, and the lamp's small flame bowing in the breeze. Hear the crickets. Feel the cool clay under your feet. I want you to be close, as if we are sharing one woven mat. When my mother was strong, she laughed with her whole face. When she cooked, the scent of onions and ground pepper would leave the kitchen and follow me to the far fence. She kept everything in its place. Seeds in a gourd bowl, needles in a smooth folded cloth, keys on a nail by the door, each with a little string. She liked a good list and a clear plan. She also liked small surprises, the kind that felt like kindness. On market mornings, she would hide one sweet mango near the bottom of my basket. When I found it, she would say, "You see? Good things keep company with good work." One evening, after the first rain of the season softened the ground and the frogs called to each other like gossiping aunties, she spoke to me about her will. Her voice was steady, like a drum played by someone who knows the rhythm well. "Daughter," she said, "if my voice ever falls quiet, my words must know how to stand. I have written them. I have asked good people to witness them." She tapped the table where we ate. "I wrote your name. I wrote your uncle's name. I wrote the house, the small field, the savings in the bank. I wrote what is fair. Not too much for anyone. Enough for each to walk well." She did not tell me where the paper was. She smiled at my anxious face. "You will know," she said, and brushed my eyebrows with her thumb. Truth is patient. It waits for good ears. We thought we had more time, but the sickness came like a slow river, carrying away small things at first, then larger things. It did not come with storms or shouts. It came with quiet losses. My mother's steps grew small. Her fingers, once so quick, took longer to tie a knot. Yet her mind stayed clear. She called me to her side. We talked about the rainy season and the dry season. We talked about how to choose a good watermelon by thumping it. We talked about sorrow and courage. She told me which herbs helped when a cough was stubborn. She told me how to grieve without breaking the jars that hold tomorrow. "You breathe," she said. "You watch the sun. You sweep the floor. You share your water." When she died, the sky was the color of old cotton. The harmattan had not yet arrived, but the air was thin and the light pale. We buried her under the neem tree that leans toward our wall as if listening. People came. Some I knew, some I did not. Auntie Hannah came with her small knife and a pot of stew. The elders came with their steady eyes. My Uncle Jonah came with his careful steps and quiet hands. He is my mother's brother. He has a deep voice that sounds like night drums far away. He did many helpful things. He ordered chairs. He made sure the fire did not go out. He told me to sit when I stood for too long. He wiped his eyes and did not try to hide it. If you had walked by, you would have said, "Here is a man carrying both his sorrow and his duty." A few days passed in a soft fog. I heard cups set down, doors opened and closed, greetings at the gate, and the scrape of a broom on the yard. I moved like someone walking underwater. People spoke of the will in whispers, then in normal voices, then in careful words like this. "Your mother was wise. She wrote things. We should read them." At dusk, Uncle Jonah gathered us in the yard. The air had the sweet smell of ripe guava. He stood with his palms open. "I have looked," he said. "I have gone through the trunk. I have checked the chest. There is no will." He shook his head slowly. Perhaps she spoke of writing it and did not finish. "It happens. Let us not fight ghosts. Let us keep the house together. Let us keep the land together. The child," he nodded to me and his mouth softened, "will be safe. I will see to it." I wanted to trust that voice. My mother had trusted him many times. He used to lift me to the roof to hand clay to the older boys when we patched leaks. He used to carry me on his shoulders to see the parade on Independence Day. He once gave me a bright blue thread when I cried for no reason, and told me to tie it on my finger whenever I wanted to remember something good. But that evening, something in his smile felt like a door only half open. A small stone settled into my chest. I went to my mother's room when people left. I lit the small lamp. I began to look. I started with the obvious places. The big trunk at the foot of the bed. the woven basket under the window that smelled of palm oil and old letters, the iron box where she kept coins for change. I lifted each folded cloth and felt the edges. I checked every pocket. I ran my fingers under the shelves. I tapped the wood. I climbed on a stool and looked at the beam where the swallows built nests every summer. The swallows were gone now. Their nest was empty and smooth, like a used bowl. I searched until my knees hurt. I found recipes. I found 2 small notes from when I was young. "Mama, I will feed the chickens, I promise," signed with a crooked heart. I found my father's old radio, quiet and heavy. I did not find the will. In the morning, I went to the kitchen and stood without moving. The pots glinted. The broom leaned in the corner as if tired. Auntie Hannah came in, her skirt swishing. She put a hand on my back, then took it away and set it back again, as if asking permission. "Eat," she said. She gave me porridge with a little honey. I ate because she watched. Then I told her what my uncle had said. I told her what my mother had told me. "There is a will," I said. She wrote it. She signed it. Others signed it. Auntie Hannah listened. She always listens fully, like a tree drinks sun. "Child," she said at last, "grief can turn shadows into ropes. But truth knows how to wait. Your mother trusted the elders. If there is a paper, it will speak. Do not accuse. Do not hide. Gather the good people. Let them help you see. One proverb fits here." She wiped her knife on a rag, then looked at me. "The one who is patient eats ripe fruit." She smiled a small, tired smile. "We will be patient. We will also be brave." I wanted to do something useful, so I went to the bank. The bank smells of paper and new paint. A fan pushed the warm air around. The clerk, a young man with neat hair, looked at me over the counter. "My mother passed," I said. She had an account. I gave him her name. He looked at his screen and nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "We are sorry." He handed me a form. "To make changes to access funds, we will need proof and documents. If there is a will, we will need to see it." I walked home with the form folded in my hand. The sun was high. The road wavered. My sandals felt too thin. At the gate, my uncle was sitting on a stool, repairing a woven chair with strips of cane. "Where did you go?" he asked. "The bank," I said. "They need the will." He nodded, then kept weaving over, under. The rhythm was pretty. "I checked the old place," he said. "The one where she kept the festival cloth, nothing." He looked up and gave me a smile that did not reach his eyes. "We will find a way." That night I could not sleep. The moon was thin, a silver fingernail. I rose and walked quietly through the house. I stopped by the door of my mother's room. The threshold stone was cool. I stood with my toes on it and felt a strange ache. How many times had we stepped over this stone? How many greetings had it overheard? My mother once joked that the doorway knew more about our lives than we did. I put my hand on the doorpost. The wood felt smooth where hands had polished it. "Where did you put it?" I whispered. The lamp hummed softly. No answer came. Days pass faster when you cannot sleep. I searched again and again, each time widening the circle, like ripples from a dropped pebble. I checked the kitchen jars. I checked the loose floor tile under the bed. I checked inside the fat dictionary we kept for crossword nights. I even checked the charcoal basket because once, years ago, my mother hid a birthday ribbon under the coals to keep me from finding it early. I did not find anything but a little black dust and my own stubborn breath. People came and went. They brought food, stories, advice. Some advice was helpful. Some was a handful of air. "Time will heal," one neighbor said. Another said, "You must be strong." I nodded. Strength is not a thing you can pick up like a pot and carry. Sometimes it is more like a thin thread you hold while crossing a stream. That thread was my mother's voice in my head saying, "Do not rush, but do not sleep either. Walk." One afternoon, the market filled with color. Bright cloths hung like flags. A woman in a blue headscarf beat rhythm on a calabash, and a pair of boys danced with wooden swords, careful and laughing. The smell of roasted groundnuts wrapped itself around everyone who passed. I went to buy salt and soap. A cluster of children ran past me, then swirled around something at the square's edge, like birds circling a new tree. I turned to look. A storyteller had arrived. He was not flashy. He wore a plain robe the color of millet. His sandals were dusty from long roads. Over his shoulder hung a gourd lute, polished to a soft glow. On his back he carried a carved stool. He set the stool down, sat, and lifted the instrument. He tuned it with small turns, listening closely, then smiled the way one smiles when an old friend stands at the door. He plucked a few notes. The sound was like water stepping over stones. People quieted. The goats behind the basket seller stopped tugging at the rope and looked toward the music, as goats do when something new cuts the air. He began with a greeting. He thanked the sun for not burning us too much. He thanked the breeze for passing by. He thanked the elders, the mothers, the young ones, the babies with their soft eyes. I brought a bag of words, he said. If you have good ears, I will open it. If your ears are not ready, I will close it and drink water instead. The crowd laughed, not loud, but warm. He opened the bag. He told a story about a river that remembers the names whispered to it at dawn. He told a story about a carpenter whose ruler was broken, and how his village learned to measure with shadows instead. He told a story about a mother who hid an egg under the doorstep, so her child would find it when the child learned to kneel and look carefully. He did not say the word will. He did not say uncle. But when he spoke about the doorstep, a small bell rang in my heart. I looked down at my hands. My fingers were twisting the corner of my wrapper. I let go and took a breath. Then he told a story that made my throat tighten. There was a woman, he said, who lived in a house where the door smiled every morning. She had a brother who could lift heavy burdens. She had a child who could carry water with a steady back. The woman wrote her words, because words need legs when voices sleep. She wondered where to let the words wait. Not in a pot that can crack. Not on a shelf that can shift. Not under a pillow where dreams go to play. She said, "What part of the house knows us best? The threshold. It sees our feet when they are clean and when they are dusty. It hears our laughter as we come, our sighs as we go. It is not a lock that can be forced. It is a witness." So she wrapped her words in cloth, tucked them in a small calabash the color of morning smoke, tied them with red thread, and laid them where the house breathes in and out, beside the stone under the door. She told a traveler, "Carry this story. When the day is right, bring it near my house and let the house speak." People listened with their shoulders relaxed. They nodded as if the truth was rubbing their backs. The storyteller let the last note fade. He looked at the crowd one by one, not for long, just long enough to let the moment touch. His gaze passed over me and did not stop, but I felt seen anyway, like a plant that had just received a drop of rain it badly needed. The crowd clapped. The clapping was soft, thoughtful. The storyteller bowed, drank a sip of water, and began to fold his instrument into its cloth. I stepped forward, then stopped. My heart beat fast. A second step, a third. I stood near him, not so close that it would be rude. "Sir," I said. "May I speak to you?" His eyes were warm as coals banked for morning. "You may," he said. "My mother died," I said. The sentence sat heavy and flat. "She wrote a will. I cannot find it. My uncle says there is none. He says he looked. He says we should be patient. I am trying to be patient." My voice thinned. "Your story." It felt like my house. He considered me for a moment, like a man considering the wind, where it comes from, where it might be going. "Stories have feet," he said. "Sometimes they arrive at the right door. Sometimes they take a long road, then arrive anyway." He glanced beyond me, toward the line of trees that held the evening like a bowl. "If your mother trusted the elders, then ask them to open their ears. Ask them to bring the door into the circle." He lifted his stool. "I can come. I will not come as judge. I will come as witness to a story. Let the elders test the ground." "Will you say the same story?" I asked. "I will ask your house to tell its own," he said. "If the house is silent, then we will listen to the silence. If it speaks, we will listen to that." He touched the gourd lute with care. "One proverb helps us now." He spoke it softly, the way one speaks to a baby in sleep. "Truth is like oil. It always rises to the top." I breathed in and out. The sound of the market returned. the calls, the laughter, the shuffle. "Thank you," I said. "Bring water to the circle," he added. "Bring respect. Bring your uncle. Bring your own brave heart. Bring no stones. Bring no sharp words. Come with the morning, when minds are cool." I went home with salt and soap and a new kind of hope folded under my arm. I found Elder Musa at his favorite place by the big anthill near the baobab. He is tall, not by inches, but by presence. His hair is the color of wet ash. His eyes are like deep wells, cool and honest. He looks at you the way the earth looks at seeds, expecting growth. He listened without interruption as I told him about the storyteller at the market, about the doorstep story, about my mother's promise, about my uncle's careful voice. When I finished, he did not rush to answer. He looked at the dust where a beetle was busy making a perfect ball. He smiled at the beetle's work. Then he said, "It is good you did not run to the river with a bucket full of anger. It is good you came here with water and care. We will sit under the baobab tomorrow. We will invite your uncle. We will invite the storyteller. We will invite your house in the way we invite witnesses. We will not break anything. We will not harm anyone. We will test the door the way one tests a bridge. Slow steps first." He raised a finger. "Remember another proverb. The tongue that builds can also break. Today, we will build." I slept a little that night. Not much, but enough to find my morning with both eyes. At dawn, the birds in the neem tree tuned their tiny instruments. The air was cool and tasted of dew. I swept the yard slowly, pushing small piles of dust into one neat hill. I warmed water for tea. The steam rose like a prayer I did not have words for. My uncle came into the yard rubbing his arms. "You are up early," he said. "I asked the elders to meet," I answered. "Today, beneath the baobab." He stopped rubbing his arms. "For what?" "To listen," I said. "To listen to the house. To listen to the story. The storyteller will come." The muscles in his jaw moved. Then he nodded once as if to himself. "I will be there," he said. "We will listen." I prepared the place as if I were setting a table for guests. I washed the calabash and filled it with cool water from the clay pot. I polished a wooden stool with a piece of cloth until it shone. I spoke to the ground in a whisper. "We need your quiet," I said. I wrapped a simple scarf around my head and tied it firmly. By mid-morning, the shade under the baobab was sweet and full. Elders sat in a circle, each on a stool or a folded mat. Their sandals made a soft punctuation around the rim. Children kept a respectful distance, peeking and then pulling back, like little fishes. Women stood in pairs with baskets on their hips, slowing their steps as they passed. The air smelled of leaves and warm bark. Birds made short, bright notes in the branches, and then paused, as if they also wanted to listen. The storyteller arrived with his slow steps and his gourd lute. He bowed to the elders. He bowed to the mothers. He bowed to me. He bowed to my uncle. He placed the instrument on his lap but did not play yet. My uncle came in a clean shirt, his face carefully calm. He greeted each elder. He greeted me. His hand on my shoulder was light, like a leaf touching water. He sat opposite me. Elder Musa stood. He is a man who does not waste words. "We are here," he said, "to do a careful thing in a careful way. We are here to listen, to the living and to the house. We will not shout. We will not accuse. We will open our palms to the truth, whatever shape it takes. We will send away gossip and invite respect to sit down with us." He looked from my face to my uncle's and back. "We will start with water." He took the calabash from my hands. He poured a small sip onto the earth. The drops sank in and darkened the dust. "For those who cannot drink today," he said. Then he passed the calabash around the circle. Each person drank and passed it on. When it returned to me, I took a sip and felt the coolness slide down my throat. It was the first cool thing I had felt all week. "Daughter," Elder Musa said, "tell us what you know." I stood, because sitting with such words felt wrong. "My mother wrote a will," I said. She told me the names. She told me the plan, the house for me, a room always for my uncle, the field divided in fairness, a gift for the school so a child would walk easier, thanks for Auntie Hannah. She told me she signed it. She told me others signed it. After she passed, I searched. I could not find it. My uncle says there is no will. He says he looked. Today, the storyteller told a story about a threshold that holds secrets kindly. I felt my mother's voice in that story. I asked that we listen together. I sat. My legs shook a little. My hands were damp. The calabash sat on the ground between my feet like a quiet friend. Brother, Elder Musa said to my uncle, "Tell us what you know." My uncle stood. He looked at me, then at the elders, then at the space beyond us where light pooled. "My sister was careful," he said. "It is true she spoke of a will. I did not see it. I looked in the trunk, the chest, the shelf. I found nothing. I swear I did not burn it, tear it, or throw it away. If I find it, I will lift it up. If there is none, I will keep the house safe." He spread his hands. "That is what I know." People listened. No one murmured. No one coughed. Even the leaves seemed to hold still to honor the moment. Elder Musa nodded. He turned to the storyteller. "You asked to bring a story," he said. The storyteller plucked 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, like footsteps up a small hill. The sound settled into the shade. "When people cannot agree," he said, "we ask a wiser thing to speak. Sometimes it is time. Sometimes it is a tree. Sometimes it is a stone that has held so many feet it knows which ones are honest." He looked at me with kindness, then at my uncle without anger. "Let us invite the mother's house to speak. We will go together. We will not tear your home. We will lift only what asks to be lifted. If the house is silent, we will accept that. If it speaks, we will accept that too." "Good," Elder Musa said. "We will go as a small group. The rest will wait. Not because they do not care, but because too many feet will make the ground nervous." He chose 2 youths, gentle and strong. He asked Mama Essie, who knows every story of our town, to come. He asked my uncle to walk. He asked me to lead. He asked the storyteller to walk behind us so no one would say his hands made a trick. Then he said one more thing. "Let us remember another proverb. When the drumbeat changes, the dancers must change their steps. If the truth demands a new step from us today, we will take it." We stood. My knees felt like reeds in wind, thin but alive. The little group began to walk, and the rest of the circle watched us go. I could feel their quiet at my back. It did not push me. It held me up. The path to our house is short. The red dust took our footprints without complaint. On the wall, a lizard lifted its head and blinked, as if it knew every face in the procession and welcomed us. We entered the yard. The cooking stones sat like old friends, patient and rounded. The mango tree behind the kitchen had 2 fruits hanging low, still green and hard. The bowl where we keep rainwater glowed blue. I stopped before the doorway to my mother's room. How many times had my mother stood here, adjusting her scarf, listening for my voice, or my uncle's footfall? I touched the doorpost. My palm came away with a faint shine from years of oil and hands. "We will not rush," Mama Essie said. She knelt and placed her hand on the threshold stone, the way one places a hand on a sleeping child's back. "House," she whispered. "We are your people." The youths waited. The storyteller stood a little behind, his face gentle, his instrument quiet against his shoulder. My uncle stood to one side with his hands at his sides, his fingers not moving, as if he had told them to be still, and they obeyed. I looked at Elder Musa. He nodded to the youth with the delicate hands, the one who carved small animals out of leftover wood. The youth crouched and touched the edge of the packed earth near the stone, not to pry it up rudely, but to feel its patience. He slid a thin blade under and lifted a little. The earth did not break, it sighed. The other youth held a small brush and swept dust away from the stone's lip. I could hear my heartbeat. I could hear my mother humming from a long time ago, or maybe it was the wind making that memory. We did not pull the stone. We only looked where it met the earth, where air might move if something lived there that was not just dirt. A spider, pale and tired, walked away with dignity, as if to say, "I have seen enough." The youth paused and glanced up at me, asking with his eyes if he should continue. I nodded. He eased the blade again, the way a tailor eases fabric open to add a panel for a child who has grown taller. We found nothing yet. Only clean earth, packed by years, smelling faintly of rain that came and went, and of the oil that sometimes spills from lamps and seeps into the floor. The youth sat back on his heels to rest his careful hands. We did not force the ground. The storyteller spoke in a voice so soft it felt like a pillow. "If the house prefers to speak in the presence of all ears," he said, "we will listen then." I stood. I put my hand on the door again. I felt its smooth face under my fingers. I thought of my mother's smile. I thought of how she laughed when rain came through the broken roof and we ran with bowls to catch it, laughing even as our feet slipped in mud. I thought of her saying, "Be brave." Not the loud kind. The steady kind. I turned to the group. "Let us go back," I said. We asked. The house asked us to wait. We walked back to the baobab. The shade felt like a blessing held open just for us. The elders looked up. They did not crowd us. They did not pepper us with questions. They made space for our faces to tell what words might not want to push out yet. We took our places again. I sat. My uncle sat. The storyteller set his instrument down. "We looked," Elder Musa said simply, to me. "We did," I answered. "We did not find the will. We did not find anything yet." I swallowed. But I felt something I cannot name. Not a trick. Not a lie. Just a sense that the house will speak when the circle is wide enough. The elders nodded at that. It was not a defeat. It was not a victory. It was the middle road, where patient people walk when the sun is not too hot and the wind is kind. The storyteller lifted his gourd lute and plucked a gentle line of notes that sounded like a mother smoothing a child's hair. "Sometimes," he said, "a story waits for more ears. It is shy with small circles. It opens when the village leans in together." He looked at my uncle only long enough to recognize him as a man with a heart and a history. He looked at me long enough to remind me I was still more than my worry. "If the elders agree," he said, "I will tell the doorstep story again, but with the door listening. I will tell it tomorrow at the house with whoever wishes to come. Not a crowd that breaks things. A community that holds things." Elder Musa raised his chin. "We agree," he said. "The mother trusted this tree," he added, laying his hand on the baobab's thick bark. "She trusted our ears. We will go to the house tomorrow, mid-morning, when shadows are honest. We will stand under the lintel. We will listen. We will let the house be our witness. We will let the words rise if they can. We will not stain our patience with anger." He turned to me. "Daughter," he said, "sleep if sleep comes. If it does not, breathe. We are with you." He turned to my uncle. "Brother, walk with us tomorrow. Leave fear at home. Bring only truth." My uncle inclined his head. He did not smile this time. He did not frown. He looked like a man standing at the edge of water, trying to decide how cold it will be and whether he can bear it. "I will come," he said. People stood and stretched their legs. The sound of voices blew around the circle like a soft wind. No one said harsh words. No one asked me to be strong when I felt thin. They simply shared the air. The calabash returned to my hands, lighter now, almost empty. I poured the last drops into my mouth and tasted clay and coolness. On the way home, I walked beside the storyteller for a few steps. "Do you think the house will speak?" I asked. He looked at the sky, which was now the color of boiled milk. "I think the house loves you," he said. "And love is talkative in the right company. Whether it speaks with paper or with another thing, I cannot say. But I know this. We are making a room where truth will feel at home." He peeled off toward the guest compound where travelers sleep. I turned into our yard. The neem tree moved its leaves with a small shiver. I stood in the doorway to my mother's room. I did not step over. I placed my palm on the threshold stone and held it there. It felt warm from the day. I whispered a little prayer that was not so much words as it was a longing. Let what is fair be seen. Let what is hidden come with dignity. Let no one be broken. Let us walk forward. That night I slept. Not for long, but the sleep was deep. I dreamt I was walking with my mother along the edge of a river. We did not talk. We carried baskets. We filled them with nothing but light. The baskets grew heavy anyway, and we laughed because it made no sense, and yet it felt true. I woke with my heart full, and for a moment I did not remember the day. Then memory sat down beside me, gentle but solid. I rose, I washed my face. I tied my scarf. I opened the door and stepped into the morning. The dew on the grass kissed my ankles. The cooking stones held their nights cool. A rooster called once, as if he did not want to waste his best song. I swept the yard again, this time with slow, sure strokes, as if I knew the steps of the dance and the drum was playing exactly for me. I put water in the clay pot to cool. I laid out 2 cups on the table, one for me, one for whomever might need water more than I did. Toward mid-morning, I heard feet on the road. Quiet feet, many but not too many. I exhaled and stood up straight. I went to the gate to welcome them, as my mother taught me. We were ready to invite the house to speak. We were ready to let a story do what hands could not. We were ready, I hoped, to be fair and brave at the same time. They came with quiet feet. Not a crowd that would crush the yard, just the right number to keep balance. Elder Musa walked first, steady as always. Behind him came Mama Essie, the 2 careful youths, the storyteller with his gourd lute, and my uncle Jonah. A few neighbors stood by the wall under the neem and kept a respectful distance. Even the hens, busy with morning scratch, paused and watched us out of one bright eye. I met them at the gate and bowed my head. "Welcome," I said. "Water is ready." I poured from the clay pot into a clean calabash. The first sip went to the earth, as it had under the baobab. Then the calabash made a slow circle through the hands that had come to listen. The morning smelled of wet leaves and cooking smoke, of soap on clean shirts, and of the faint sweetness of mango sap warming in the sun. "We will make our rules now," Elder Musa said in a quiet voice that carried. "We will not shout. We will not push. We will move like people who trust the ground. We will ask the house to speak not by magic, not by force, but by care. We will begin with thanks." He put his palm on the doorpost. "House, we thank you for shelter," he murmured. The word shelter settled on the wood like oil. Then he nodded to the storyteller. The storyteller sat on a low stool near the threshold. He did not enter the room. He set the gourd lute on his lap and let his fingers find a slow line of notes. The sound was like a river that knows where it is going. He stopped after a few breaths and lifted his eyes to the doorway, as if greeting an old friend. "Door," he said softly. "You have seen much. We are listening." He told the doorstep story again, but today his voice carried a new hush. It seemed as if the wood and stone were listening with us. He spoke of a mother who wrapped her words, tied them with red thread, placed them where the house breathes, and asked a traveler to hold that story until the day her child needed it. He did not speak my mother's name. He did not have to. When the last note slipped into the morning, even the goats in the lane stopped chewing. "We will look," said Elder Musa. He lifted his chin to my uncle. "Brother, you will stand with us. If you are moved to speak, we will listen. If you wish to suggest a place your sister might have used, you may. We test truth carefully, not with hands alone, but with fairness." My uncle nodded. His jaw muscles flickered like small fish. "I will stand," he said. We removed our sandals and stood at the threshold. The stone under the door was smooth from years of feet. Its surface was cool and held the memory of last night's breath. The careful youth with the carver's hands knelt. He did not pry. He greeted. He ran his fingertips along the seam where the stone met the packed earth. The other youth brushed away loose dust with a soft brush. They moved like people helping an old person rise from a low stool. No rush, full respect. Mama Essie whispered, "House, we will not hurt you," then placed her palm flat on the stone. From where I stood, I saw a small spider pause on the doorframe as if to watch the work. The storyteller rested his hands. His instrument lay quiet and patient, like a respectful child at a wake. We watched the youths ease the thin blade under the edge, breath by breath. The blade is the kind used to open sacks without tearing. It made a small, faithful sound, hush, hush, hush. The seam loosened as if it too was willing to see the day. Just then, my uncle took a step forward. His voice was tight but not loud. "This is foolishness," he said. "Stones do not keep papers. We should search the high shelf, the trunk again, the pantry. We will make fools of ourselves digging in the floor." "Brother," Elder Musa said gently, his palm in the air. You will have your places. We will look in them. We have not made a promise to the stone alone. We have promised to be thorough. We started here because a story led us to a witness. We will not stop our ears to other witnesses. My uncle swallowed. Then let me look at the shelf, he said, pointing to the high plank where we kept my mother's festival bowl and the blue tin where Buttons lived. You may, said Elder Musa. Go with the youth, he added. Not as suspicion, but to keep the path straight. My uncle took the carved stool from the corner, climbed with care, and ran his hand along the back of the shelf. He tapped the wood, pressed the corners, lifted the tin, and opened it. Buttons, needles, thread, a thimble, a folded paper with a recipe for coconut bread. No, Will. He sighed, came down, and set the stool back exactly where it belonged. His fingers trembled. He tucked them into his belt to still them. Meanwhile, the youth at the threshold had loosened the edge of the packed earth no wider than a finger. He stopped, lifted his eyes to mine, and waited, asking without words if he should go on. I nodded. My mouth was dry. I licked my lips and tasted dust and salt. He slid the blade deeper, then used his hands to lift a shallow slice of earth as if it were a thin cake. Underneath, the dirt was darker, holding a shadow of damp. The second youth held the brush ready but did not touch yet. A curl of red thread peeped from the edge of the hollow. I forgot to breathe. Wait, I whispered, though no one was rushing. The youth brushed with 2 gentle strokes. The red thread was tied around the neck of a small calabash, no bigger than a coconut, sealed with wax clouded by dust. It lay cradled in the shallow, like an egg in a careful nest. The tiny hollow around it was lined with cloth, the color of morning smoke. I recognized the cloth. My mother had used it to wrap festival spoons. She called it her quiet cloth because it never showed stains. Tears rose and blurred my view. I blinked them back to see clearly. No one moved. Even the air seemed to hold still, as if afraid to disturb the moment. Do not open it, said Elder Musa, his voice low but sure. Not here. The house brought it to us, but the town must witness. We will carry it to the baobab, where the elders are our shade and the ground holds many ears. The youth slid his hands under the calabash, palms open, fingers spread like a bird's toes on a branch. He lifted it with a breath as slow as a prayer. His face was solemn. He set it in my hands. The calabash was cool and surprisingly heavy, as if it carried more than paper. My thumb rested on the wax seal. I felt its tiny ridges, the way old wax holds the memory of a careful hand. We replaced the thin slice of earth. We smoothed the seam. We pressed the edge of the stone back into its place, as gentle as laying a child in a cradle. Mama Essie patted the stone. Thank you, she breathed. My uncle stood very still. His lips had lost color. He looked not at me, not at the calabash, but at the doorpost. He reached out and touched the wood once, lightly, then let his hand fall. We walked back together. The calabash sat in my palms like a living thing. The path felt new under our feet, though we had walked it 1,000 times. Neighbors saw us pass and did not join, but they stepped aside and watched with a quiet that held more care than words. The storyteller walked 1 step behind and to the side of me. He did not try to touch the calabash. He did not sing. He kept his eyes on the dust that rose, on the small circle that carried what mattered. The baobab's shade met us like a doorway made of leaves. The elders, who had waited, made space in the circle without rising, as if the space had been there all along, saved for this arrival. I knelt and set the calabash on the mat in the center. I did not want to let go, and yet I did, because that is what trust looks like. Elder Musa looked around the circle. We will open what the house gave, he said. He did not say more. There was nothing to add. He took the calabash into his hands, turned it gently, studying the wax, the red thread. He lifted it so all could see. The clouded wax made tiny cracks, the way skin does at the edge of a smile. The red thread had faded a little. It still held firm. My uncle stood. He lifted his hand, then lowered it. He tried again. I have words, he managed. But perhaps they should wait. They can wait, said Elder Musa kindly. He set the calabash back on the mat and reached for a clean cloth that lay folded beside him. He wiped his hands, then the rim, the gesture as careful as any blessing. "Daughter," he said to me, "come and stand by me." I stood. I clasped my hands to keep them from shaking. The storyteller stepped back half a pace to give me room. The circle lightened its breath as if each person had decided to lend me a little steadiness. "Before we open," said Elder Musa, "we will speak our promise again. We promise not to use this moment to harm. We promise to let truth rise and sit, whether it pleases us or not. We promise to hold each person with dignity while the paper speaks. We promise to keep whatever anger comes in our pockets until wisdom tells us where to put it down." He took the calabash into his lap. He broke the wax with his thumb, the same way I had broken wax on jars of pickled okra beside my mother on rainy afternoons. The seal gave with a small, soft sound. He loosened the red thread and set it aside. He pulled the stopper. The smell that came up was familiar. Cloth kept long in a cool place, paper that has slept. He tipped the calabash, and a wrapped bundle slid into his hand. Blue string held it together, tied in a clear, practical knot. He placed it on the cloth and untied it. Inside lay folded papers and a small sealed envelope with my name. My breath hitched. I looked at my name in my mother's hand and felt the ground, the tree, the sky, all lean a little toward me, as if to steady my knees. We did not rush. He lifted the top sheet. It was a will. The title was in plain letters. The date was clear. The signatures sat along the bottom like small boats in calm water. The first was my mother's name. The second was his own, Elder Musa. The third was Mama Essie's curling hand. The ink had not faded. It lay on the page as sure as the day it dried. A murmur moved around the circle and then stilled at once, like wind that bows tall grass, then lets it rise again. My heart felt like a drum, not loud, but steady. I looked at my uncle. He kept his eyes on the paper. His hands were at his sides, fingers straight, as if he had been set there by a painter who cared about lines. "There is a will," said Elder Musa, not with triumph, but with relief. "We will read." He looked at my uncle. "Brother, will you stand with us for the reading?" My uncle nodded once. His voice would not come. He stepped forward and stood on the other side of the calabash across from me. "Before we read," said the storyteller softly, "let us remind our ears what they are for." He plucked a single note, pure and round, and let it float into the shade. Truth is like oil. It always rises to the top. He did not smile. He did not preach. He only offered the sentence the way one offers a stool to a tired traveler. Elder Musa unfolded the first page. He angled it so that light reached the words. He took a breath. He began, his voice clear, his pace even, as if the syllables were beads on a string, and he would not let one slip away. "This is the last will and testament of—" He paused only to steady the page in the breeze and to look once at me, then at my uncle, seeing us both with the same patient eyes. The circle leaned in without moving. The tree held its breath. The paper waited like a door about to open. He read my mother's name. The sound of it wrapped around me like her shawl. He read the first lines, naming her mind as clear, her wish to speak for the days when her mouth could no longer form the words. He read the opening that said, "This will was made without force, without fear, in simple clarity." He read the part that named me. He read the part that named my uncle. He read about the house and the field. He read about the little bank account. He read about a gift to the school so a child without shoes could step more easily into learning. He read about a thank you for Auntie Hannah for her faithful hands. As he read, the circle did not sway. No one whispered. The only sounds were his voice, a dove cooing somewhere above us, and the faint creak of the stool as the storyteller shifted his weight to keep the instrument safe in his lap. My uncle's face was a field in a dry season, holding cracks, holding the promise of rain that had not yet come. He swallowed. His Adam's apple moved. He lifted his hand to his mouth and left it there, not to hide, but to help himself hold still. When the first page ended, Elder Musa set it carefully to one side, face down so dust would not claim it. He lifted the second. He read the clause that invited my uncle to keep a room in the house for as long as he wished, as long as peace lived in his steps. He read the clause that divided the field in fairness, part mine, part my uncle's, in lines that followed the contour of the land, the termite mound, the big rock like a sleeping cow, the place where the soil turns darker after rain. He read that my mother wanted the big room locked by my key, and that major decisions about selling or dividing should be made with the elders present, so that no one would carry too heavy a load in secret. When he finished, he rested his hand on the calabash, as one might rest a hand on a sleeping child's shoulder to feel the breath. He looked at the sealed envelope with my name. "This," he said, "will be yours to open. The will we have heard together. The letter is for your eyes first." He lifted the envelope and placed it in my palm. It felt light and spoke no sound. I did not open it. Not yet. The letter could wait for a quiet corner. The moment in the circle still needed its last steps. "Are there questions?" asked Elder Musa. But he asked it knowing that the first thing we needed was not a question. It was the hush that lets meaning find its seat. A small sound rose, a chair leg rubbing the mat. It was my uncle clearing his throat. He moved a half step forward. He began, then stopped. He tried again. "I hear the words," he said. "They are my sisters." His voice cracked. He swallowed. "I am ashamed." He closed his eyes for a slow count, opened them, and looked down, not at the calabash, but at the dust by his feet, as if it might rewrite what his hands had done days ago. "I was afraid," he said in a thin voice, and said no more yet. "Brother," said Elder Musa, "you will speak fully. But first, let us bless the path of the words themselves. The will must be witnessed, copied, and kept as the law asks. We will not make a mountain in our mouths before we lay the stone that steadies feet." He lifted his chin to the scribe who sat a little behind the circle with a slate and paper. "You will make a copy today," he instructed. The scribe nodded, dipped his pen, and waited. I heard a breath release from the group that had been holding itself still. The sound returned to the baobab leaves. The small wind tickled the edges of the shade, and a baby somewhere made a soft chirp of a sound, ready to sleep. The storyteller set the gourd lute across his knees and ran one thumb along the strings, making no melody, only a promise that the melody would come when needed. I looked at my uncle. He had not moved. Do we ever know what is inside another person? How to make room for truth and also for the one who kept it from us? I did not rush toward anger. It would come if it was needed. For now the paper was in the sun. It was enough. "Daughter," said Elder Musa, turning to me, "you have been steady. If there is anything you wish to say before we ask your uncle to answer, say it now." "Not to wound. To anchor," I swallowed. Words felt like beans soaking. They needed time and water. But a few rose. "I thank the elders," I said, "for letting our house speak in peace. I thank the youths for careful hands. I thank the storyteller for carrying a promise. I thank the doorway for being patient. I ask that we honor what my mother wrote. I ask that we walk in a way that does not tear what can be mended." It was all I had. It felt small and right. "Good," said Elder Musa. He turned to my uncle. "Brother, speak." My uncle's hands came together, fingers interlacing, then separating, as if he could braid a better past. He exhaled slowly. "I was afraid," he said again, a little stronger. "I thought I could keep control after my sister died. I thought if the will is lost, I can decide more things, and no one will blame me because grief is heavy, and someone has to be strong." He looked up, and his eyes found mine. He did not plead. He did not defend. He simply let me see him carry his own words. I did not burn it. I did not tear it. I knew where it lay. I told myself I would bring it out when I had fixed my troubles, when I had made plans that looked clean. But lies in clean clothes are still lies. Fear sat on my shoulder and called itself wisdom. He stopped. The circle did not judge with noise. It sat in the way only a good circle can sit, holding, not crushing. I felt a tide in me rise and fall. I thought of my mother adding water to soup so that one more visitor could eat. "We will answer this," said Elder Musa, and his voice kept its even tone. "We will not answer with fists. We will answer with steps." He signaled to the scribe, who moved forward with paper and pen. "We will record the will. We will record that it was produced from the house in the presence of these witnesses. We will record that the uncle confesses to hiding knowledge of its place. We will record the community's plan to hold the will's guidance like a lamp." He eyed my uncle. "Then, brother, you and I will meet with those to whom you owe. We will bring your debts into the same light. Nothing grows well under a pile of rugs." We paused there, at the edge of decisions. The discovery had been made. The paper lay in daylight. The next road began where we were sitting. I looked at the envelope with my name again. I slid it into the fold of my wrapper near my waist, where I keep little important things. Pins, a scrap of a lesson, a phrase my mother once said. I would open it later, when the house was quiet and the light lay soft on the floor. "Let us take the last step for today," said Elder Musa. "Let us seal what we have done with the simple act that begins. All good things." He reached for the calabash of water. It had been refilled. He poured a ribbon of water onto the ground in a circle that caught the dust and turned it dark. Then he handed the calabash to my uncle. My uncle drank and passed it to me. I drank and passed it to Mama Isi. The circle went around, each person taking one small sip, as if to say, "We share this work. We share this relief." The storyteller rose at last and gave us a melody, gentle and bright as a small bird's morning song. He did not play long. He ended on a note that seemed to hover, then sit, satisfied. People began to stand, one here, one there, legs stretching, faces softening. No one rushed away because no one wanted to break the thread too quickly. We moved like a cloth being folded, neat, careful, ready to be opened again when needed. When most had gone, I wandered to the edge of the shade and sat with my back against the baobab. The bark pressed into my shoulders, rough and ancient. The roots beneath me pulsed with the slow life of the tree. The scribe approached with a copy of the will, words just dry. He blew gently across the page and handed it to me on the cloth, his eyes meeting mine with a small brightness. "A good day's work," he said. I nodded and held the copy and the original together, the way one holds two hands and knows they belong to one another. For a moment, I let myself imagine my mother's hands holding these same papers, folding them with that care she gave to everything worth keeping. I found my uncle under the neem. He stood alone as if measuring his next breath. He looked at me and did not speak. He opened his mouth, then closed it, and laughed once without mirth at his own clumsy silence. I stepped closer. "We will keep the will," I said. "We will do what it says." He bowed his head. "Yes," he whispered. "Tomorrow we meet the men you owe," I added. "We will not hide. We will go with the elders." "Yes," he said again, a little stronger. "Come home," I said. "There is work to do, and there is tea." We walked side by side. The path seemed to recognize our feet. The day had tilted toward afternoon. The breeze teased the leaves and they whispered back. At the door, I placed my hand on the stone again. It was warm now, sun-kissed. I thought of the calabash sleeping in the morning soil, of the red thread my mother tied, of the trust she placed in our community to bring her words into light. I whispered, "Thank you." Inside, I put the papers in a woven basket my mother made with a pattern like fish scales. I took the key from the nail, turned it in the lock of the big room, and felt the tumblers fall into place with a sound like a promise kept. I set the basket high on the shelf, then tucked the key into the tie at my waist. I made tea. I poured a cup for my uncle and a cup for myself. We sat at the small table, where the wood gleams from years of hands. The steam rose between us, carrying the scent of mint from the garden patch. Neither of us said much. We were tired in the honest way, a good tired that comes when a heavy load is put down in the right place. "Your mother," my uncle said finally, "would be proud of you." I did not say I hope so. I looked at the steam and nodded. Pride was not the point. Peace was. Fairness was. A clean path forward was. Evening arrived on soft feet. A line of pink held the edge of the sky. Children laughed down the lane. A bicycle bell rang twice. Somewhere, a woman sang a lullaby about a bird and a safe nest. I washed the cups and set them upside down on a cloth. I closed the shutters. I sat by the door with the letter in my lap, the one with my name, and waited for the house to hush enough so that my mother's paper voice would feel welcome. I sat by the door with the letter in my lap until the house grew quiet enough to welcome it. The lamplight made a soft circle around me. Outside, a night insect rattled. Far off, someone laughed, and the sound thinned as it traveled. I slipped my finger under the edge of the seal and lifted it. The paper inside was smooth, like water that has been left alone. "My child," my mother's hand began, her strokes measured, the ink deep and sure. "If your eyes are on these lines, then the air is warm and I am not beside you to feel it. Hold the warmth. It is not lost. You have learned how to boil water without scalding your hands. Do the same with sorrow. Keep the flame, not the burn." I wrote the will as a way of folding our life into a neat basket: house, field, bank, gratitude. It is not the whole of love. It is only a path. Walk the path. When you meet your uncle in the morning of this letter, offer him a chair. Ask him to sit. Ask him to be the good brother he has been before. If he stumbles, be firm. If he reaches, take his hand. Remember, a rope is made of many threads. I kept my words where our feet would remember them. I asked a friend who carries stories to pass near our door at the right season. If you are reading, then the season found you. Trust the shade of the elders. Do not do anything that would make your heart a hard room. The world is already full of those. Keep your window open. Let truth move the curtains. And one more thing. Each harvest, take a little from what the land gives and bring it to the school. There is a boy or girl you do not know whose day will be lighter because you did. Light loves to travel. Let it borrow your feet. I am not gone from the doorway. I am the hush before you step. I am the breath you take without thinking. I am the steadiness you feel in your back when you balance a full bowl. Walk well. I pressed the letter to my chest. The paper warmed under my palm. It did not remove the ache, but it made the ache sit down and breathe with me. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I tucked it into the basket with the will and turned the key in the lock of the big room. The sound of the tumblers falling was gentle and right. Morning came with a pale ribbon of light along the wall. Birds argued softly in the neem tree. My uncle knocked on the doorpost instead of stepping through. I looked up from the table where I was writing a list. Bank, scribe, school, creditors, copy of the will for the clerk. Tea? I asked. He nodded, and his shoulders lowered a little, as if someone had taken a pail of stones from his hands. We sat. The mint leaves gave their smell to the steam. He held the cup in both hands. "When my sister was alive," he said, not looking at me, "I slept through the night. After she went, the dark grew teeth." He paused, then set the cup down. "I have told the elders I will bring the names of those I owe. I will not walk alone. Will you come?" "I will," I said. We met the elders under the baobab before the sun rose high. The scribe had a clean ledger and a new pen. "We will walk to 3 houses," said Elder Musa. "We will sit on 3 stools. We will not offer sweet words where bitter medicine is needed, but we will not pour the medicine on the ground either. We will measure. We will agree. We will put the plan on paper, then on our feet." The first creditor was a carpenter with hands like roots. He greeted us at the gate, invited us to sit, and pushed a small plate of roasted groundnuts toward us. "We borrowed wood," my uncle said, voice steady. "The roof needed repair before the last rains. I promised payment in 2 months. Then my sister's illness took our time and purse. Now we have a will. Now we have light." The carpenter listened, his face calm. "It is easier to carry a bundle when each strap is tight," he said, a neighbor's way of saying yes. The scribe read the terms. We proposed small payments from the field's first harvest, with 1 early payment from the bank to honor the trust. The carpenter nodded. He placed his thumb next to his name in the ledger when the ink dried. His wife brought water and smiled at me with the smile of a woman who has known both plenty and lean days. The second creditor was a grain seller who kept her accounts in neat rows. She invited us to sit on woven mats under her eaves, where the shade smelled of millet husks. She spoke more sharply, but not cruelly. "You should have come sooner," she said, tapping the ledger's edge with her finger. "But you are here now." We offered our plan. She added one small change, an extra sack of sorghum added to the last payment if the harvest was good. "If the land smiles, it should smile on two people," she said. We agreed. She pressed her thumb. The scribe blew the ink dry. The third creditor was the most difficult. He stood with his arms crossed, his lips thin. He spoke of time lost and patience worn. My uncle did not look away. He did not ask the man to forgive more than was fair. He asked for time, with the elders as witnesses. "I will not hide," my uncle said. "I will bring each payment to your table with a receipt you can hold." The man hesitated. He glanced at Elder Musa, who stood like a straight pole in rich earth. "If the elders stand, I will stand," the man said at last. The scribe recorded. The man placed his thumb with a small sigh, as if he had swallowed medicine and found it not as bitter as he feared. By noon, the ink was dry, and the plan was set. "A single hand cannot tie a bundle," said Mama Essie, pleased. She looked at my uncle. "You did not run from the light." "That is good. The light will not run from you." We walked to the bank, the will folded in a cloth in my arms. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of paper and metal. The same clerk from before looked up. His eyes warmed when he saw the elders. "You have what you need," he said softly. He checked the signatures, the date, the names. He made copies. He asked me to sign where my name belonged. My hand did not shake this time. "Your mother planned well," he added. "We will make the transfers according to the will." He did not rush. He explained each page. He gave me a folder to take home. It was plain brown with a string tie. I liked its quiet honesty. We stopped at the school on the way back. Children played with a rag ball under a line of cassia trees. Their laughter sounded like bright pebbles thrown in a shallow pool. The headmaster met us at the office door. He wore a clean shirt with a collar a little frayed. We explained the clause and the will. He nodded, blinking fast. He called a girl from a classroom. She came running, a book pressed to her chest, her hair in neat plaits. She stood tall with bare feet dusty at the edge of the mat. "This will help," I said, offering the first small gift from the will's allotment. "It is not charity. It is a path my mother drew." The headmaster smiled at the girl and placed his hand on her shoulder, gentle and proud. "We will keep careful accounts," he promised. My chest lifted and softened at the same time. At home, Auntie Hannah came in with her small knife, her skirt whispering as she walked. I showed her the will and the place that held a gift for her. She put her hand to her mouth, then lowered it. "Your mother," she said, "never forgot the hands that helped her hold her day." She sank onto the stool and laughed through tears. "Now I must use this gift to help someone else. That is the only way to keep it warm." She looked at me with her tender eyes. "Eat," she said, as if to remind the day to be ordinary again. In the afternoon, my uncle brought a tin of oil and a length of red thread to the doorway. "May I?" he asked. I nodded, not quite understanding. He sat on the step, oiled the door's hinges until they sighed their tiredness away, then polished the wood with a soft cloth. When he finished, he tied the red thread in a small bow around a nail near the lintel. "To remember," he said. "Not to hide. To remember." The bough wagged lightly when the breeze passed and then was still. A day later, the rains arrived for real. Thick drops, warm. The earth drank with a sound like a satisfied hum. I stood at the window and watched the soil darken, the dust lay down, and the sorghum stalks lift their shoulders. The roof held. The carpenter's wood was strong. We laughed when a small leak found the corner near the pantry. My uncle fetched a bowl and set it under the drip. "Not everything must be perfect to be good," he said, and the bowl chimed softly with each drop, a bright, small sound in the deeper drum of rain. News of the will's discovery no longer traveled in rushes. It settled into the town like a bird that had found a branch. People did not stop me in the market to ask questions. They smiled and moved aside. I walked lighter, not because grief had left, but because truth had moved in beside it and shared the load. The storyteller passed by sometimes, sleeping in the guest compound, then leaving before the heat rose. He always paused at our gate, resting a hand on the lintel. If we saw him, we took water to the road. He accepted, eyes shining with a quiet that did not need any words. One evening, a small rippled test came, as life always sends to see if you mean what you say. A cousin David came from the next town with a plan. He stood in the yard, hat in hand, face open. "This house is too small for such big lives," he said. "Sell a strip of the yard, the part by the wall, and build something bright and tall. I have a friend who will buy. Quick money? Clean." The plan sounded smooth, like a river that hides its whirlpools. My uncle looked at me. I looked at the red thread on the nail, at the threshold stone, at the key tied at my waist. "The will says major choices must be made with the elders," I said, "and the house says it needs all its breath." I smiled, not to soften refusal, but to keep the path friendly. "Let us bring your idea to the baobab. If the circle says yes, we will talk more. If it says no, we will find another way to help your friend." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Elders make everything slow," he said. "Slowness can be a blessing," I answered. "It keeps a foot from slipping." He laughed, shook his head, and left without anger. That night, the storyteller sat in the square and told a tale about a man who sold his shadow for speed and then could not walk at noon. The town laughed gently. David laughed too, and a week later he sent a message. "Keep your yard whole. I found another buyer for my friend." When the sorghum ripened, the heads bowed with a kind of humility that always moves me. We harvested together. The air smelled of straw and sun. My uncle's hands were sure and quick. He taught me a way to twist the stalks that saved the wrists. I showed him the ledger where I was keeping the accounts. Harvest in, gifts out, debts paid, school allotment listed with dates. He nodded and wiped his brow with a cloth. "You keep better records than I do," he said, and there was no envy in it, only respect. After the harvest, we held a small gathering in the yard. Not a feast, just a gentle evening. We lit 2 lamps. We set out bowls of okra soup and rice. The elders came, the youths who had lifted the threshold stone, the scribe, the headmaster, the carpenter, the grain seller, and those who had simply kept us company with their listening. The storyteller sat near the doorway, his gourd lute leaning against his leg. The air was sweet from the guava tree near the fence. The ground, still damp from an afternoon rain, breathed cool. Elder Musa stood with a cup in his hand and spoke in short sentences, as he always did. "We do not celebrate finding a paper," he said. "We celebrate living by it." He nodded toward me, toward my uncle. "This family has chosen a good road. We will walk it with them." He lifted the cup just a little. "A proverb for the path. The river that forgets its source will dry up. We will not forget our source. We will keep bringing water to our roots." People ate and talked in low voices. Laughter rose and fell like birds lifting and landing. The storyteller tuned his instrument and played a tune that felt like a well that never runs out. When he finished, he told a story I had not heard before. It was about 3 strands of fiber, one strong, one pretty, one clever, that could not lift a basket alone, and how a girl twisted them into a rope that carried a heavy load easily. He did not say community. He did not say forgiveness. He did not say justice. He let the rope do the speaking, and our hands understood. When the bowls were empty and the lamps burned low, he stood and came to stand near me. "Your mother's letter found you," he said. "It did," I answered. He touched the lintel, then the red thread. "Keep this where eyes can see," he suggested. "Not to worship it? To remember the shape of a promise. Will you stay?" I asked. He smiled with his eyes more than his mouth, the way he always did. "I walk when the road asks me to," he said. "A village near the river sent a child with a message pressed in a palm. They need a story that can carry a heavy jar without spilling." He lifted his bag and the gourd lute. "Walk well," he added. "You too," I said. "May your stories find their doors." He bowed to the elders, bowed to my uncle, and slipped into the evening. His steps made almost no sound. Only the quiet remembered and told me he was gone. Days folded into one another. The long grass turned from green to a warm gold. The school sent a note with careful handwriting, listing the children helped by the gift. It was not a boast. It was a receipt of gratitude. The carpenter came by to check on the roof after a storm. He tapped a beam and nodded, satisfied. The grain seller waved me over in the market to show me a new ledger she was trying, with columns neat as planted rows. The scribe brought another copy of the will, laminated for safety in rain. He did not charge for the work. He said it made his hands feel useful. In quiet moments, I worked the field. The soil has its own rhythm. It does not argue. It does not flatter. When the hoe moves well, the body remembers what enough feels like. My uncle and I spoke more than we had in years. He told me how he used to run to the stream as a boy, leaping from stone to stone, how my mother shouted after him to slow down, how he pretended not to hear, and then slowed anyway when he reached the bend where the stones were slick. He told me how he first learned to bargain for yams in the market and got cheated and laughed, and how my mother gave him extra coins and said, "A lesson is not free, but it need not be cruel. Not all days were smooth." One afternoon, we opened a trunk and found a pile of unfiled receipts that made my uncle groan. "I will never be done," he said. "There is always another paper." "There is always another sunrise, too," I reminded him. "We will keep sorting." We set up 2 piles, paid and to pay. We made tea again. We put a song on our lips. The work did not feel as heavy after that. On the day we completed the first round of debt payments, Elder Musa came by with a small potted moringa tree. "Plant this near the doorway," he advised. "Its leaves will feed you. Its roots will hold the earth. And when people ask what you planted to mark the day you chose truth, you can point." We dug a square by the wall, the soil dark and damp. My uncle knelt and set the tree, his hands gentle, his eyes wet. I pressed the soil around it. We poured water from a clay jug. The leaves shook and settled, as if the sapling had taken a small breath and then grown taller by a thought. As the cool season approached, the harmattan brushed the mornings with a dry hand. The sky grew white at the horizon. Dust kissed our cheeks. I tied my scarf tight and swept the yard in wider arcs to keep the threshold clean. Each sweep felt like another small promise kept. The red thread faded a little in the sun. I replaced it with a new one and tucked the old into the basket with the letter, because memory likes to rest with its own kind. Sometimes I stood at the doorway at dusk, listening for my mother. I did not hear a voice from beyond. I heard the sound of what we had built, the hinge that no longer complained, the steady breath of the moringa's leaves, the slippered steps of my uncle on the cool floor, my own heartbeat, calm. Can a piece of paper hold a whole life? No, but it can hold a path. It can invite good feet to follow and brave hands to carry others when the path softens under rain. One afternoon, when the market was busy and the sun kind, the headmaster sent the girl with the plats to our yard with a note and a shy smile. She held a small drawing of a house with a tree beside it and a strip of blue sky at the top. "Thank you," she said, almost too softly to hear. Her sandals were new. They squeaked a little when she turned to go. I watched her as if I were watching a seed decide to sprout. I pinned the drawing to the wall near the doorway with a tiny thorn. The blue of the sky on paper seemed to add a little blue to the real one above us. The day we finished the last agreement with the creditors was the day the storyteller's music returned on the wind, faint. Or maybe it was only memory playing. We went to the baobab not to bring a problem but to mark a step. The circle formed easily. No one carried concern like a heavy pot. We carried cups of light. Elder Musa spoke 7 sentences, then sat. That is his way. He does not make a long rope when a short one ties the bundle well. "I have one more proverb," he said as we were ready to leave, holding his walking stick lightly. "A good name is better than a soft pillow." Today this family found both. Laughter rose, gentle and full. I walked home with the sun behind me. My shadow was long and walked ahead, as shadows do in late afternoon. I watched it reach the doorway first, step over the threshold, and then lie still along the floor as I entered. The lamp waited on the table. The key rested at my waist. The basket with the will and the letter sat in the big room. Safe, not to be worshipped, only to be kept, the way one keeps salt in stories. At night, when the harmattan sighed and the lamp's flame bowed, I sometimes lay awake, listening to the quiet I used to fear. It no longer had teeth. It had a soft mouth that hummed. I would think about the journey from the day of my mother's last breath to this evening. It was not a straight line. It was a series of steps, some careful, some brave, some both. The council's shade. The storyteller's note that lingered like a promise. The red thread on the nail. The stone under the door. The hands that did not snatch or slap, but lifted, opened, passed, signed, planted. People sometimes ask me, very softly, what the moral of our story is. I smile and shake my head. I do not hold it in a sentence. I hold it in the way we open the door each morning. In the way my uncle now touches the lintel as he enters, a small bow of respect. In the way the school ledger lists children's names that were not there a year ago. In the way the house has become both a shelter and a witness. If you came to our town now and sat with me at the table, I would pour tea. I would let you hear the hinge sing its small song. I would show you the moringa tree, taller now, leaves bright like coins in sunlight. I would point to the red thread and tell you how a calabash once slept beside the stone in the earth, and how a community woke it with care. I might say one proverb, simple and true. When the drumbeat changes, the dancers must change their steps. We did. And because we did, the music sounds better than before. As for the storyteller, sometimes in the blue hour between day and night, I think I hear his gourd lute again, far away, like a river talking to itself. I do not look for him on the road each morning. Stories cannot be chased like goats who escape their rope. They come when they are ready, when the hearts tied to them are ready. Mine is not waiting at the gate anymore. It is inside the house, doing its work, planting, sweeping, reading, cooking, writing in the ledger, opening the door. I end this chapter in the same place where the trouble began, the threshold. I stand with bare feet on the cool stone. I feel the house breathe around me. I say the names of those who helped us, inside my head a quiet list. My mother, who folded words into care. My uncle, who stepped into light though it stung his eyes. Auntie Hannah, who fed sorrow and made it gentle. Elder Musa, who held the circle steady. Mama Essie, who spoke to the house as if it were a friend. The youths, whose hands were careful. The scribe, whose ink made our steps clear. The headmaster, who opened a door for a child. The carpenter and grain seller, who chose patience. The storyteller, who brought the right seed at the right season. Then I step over the threshold, into the yard where the moringa's shadow falls long across the clay. The air is clean. The evening has a taste of smoke and sweet fruit. I lift my face to the sky. I feel the quiet settle on my shoulders, not like a burden, but like a shawl. We are well. Not perfect. Not finished. Well.